Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the EU LCS expansion tournament. I'm Richard Pulscam, and alongside me is James Stress O'Leary, and we are here for this next best of three between Cyborg Factory and Meloncats.
Yeah, it's our last best of three as well, so there have been some pretty intense games today, and if this is anything like the games we've seen earlier today, we are again in for another treat.
So there's some interesting things about both of these teams before we get started here, and Meloncats, they did have a competitive ruling against their top laner, so they will be having some changes in that role.
Yeah, earlier this week, Flaxish, who was the main top lane player for what was formerly known as Demon Log, so for those of you that were checking out the Rank 5s ladder a lot, they have changed their name to Meloncats. Flaxish was given a competitive ruling earlier this week, and due to rules here for the LCS expansion tournament, they have to submit somebody from their lineup on the Ranked 5's queue. And it's just so lucky for them, perhaps, that Meloncats have their coach, who is a Masters rank player, on their roster lineup. Now, he typically is a support player, so coming into this is a different role for him, but the mechanics and the basics should be there.
Yeah, we've been hearing he's having to learn the role because obviously, as you mentioned, he is a support main and they're trying to slot him into the team in that role. So we'll have to see how that works out in terms of the synergy with the rest of the team. And then we look at the other side of Cyborg Factory and honestly, Stress, we don't know much about them, and neither do the teams. These are the unknown wildcard factor coming into this tournament.
Yeah, I think it's only if you've played with them, played against them, that you really have any idea of what Cyborg Factory are going to do coming into this. I know that I was watching earlier this week a Challenger chat where Freeze was talking about, you know, Cyborg Factory, especially now with the changes to Meloncats, could do well in this first round. They're a team from, I believe it's the Czech Republic, who, if Freeze is saying they could stand a chance against this kind of lineup, maybe we'll see a second upset of the day.
Yeah, but we're not heading into this being like Cyborg Factory are amazing or they're not very good. We just don't know. And that is an unknown factor that Meloncats don't want to have to deal with, plus having to deal with the top lane issue. This is a lot of things to juggle at the same time as we get ready for Champion Select.
But there are some familiar faces on Meloncats. Let's not forget that there are players with a fair amount of experience here that I'm sure we'll get into as we head further towards the game.
Yes, indeed. So, in terms of bans, what are we looking for here? And you mentioned very briefly about some of the players you may know from this lineup. We're looking at Gilius primarily. You may have seen him, in fact, playing in Worlds, and he's one of only 2 players in the entire EU LCS expansion tournament who has experience in Worlds, the other one being Ocelot. So it's interesting to see how he'll bring that very top-level play and his experience there into the EU LCS expansion.
And then down in the bottom lane as well, another player with a lot of experience, at least in the challenger scene, is Diud, who for the best part of 2014's Gamers 2 lineup was in that bottom lane role alongside Yuki. So can Diud transition with a very similar named AD carry of Crikey? Maybe it's the name synergy. Maybe that's what
maybe
they were
that's how
going
he
for.
selects his AD carries. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how he also fits into this lineup. But or see how it all meshes together because we've picked apart some of the players. We have to see how it all works in game and indeed in Champion Select.
So, what have we heard about Meloncats' top lane now? What I've personally heard is that he's only really been learning a handful of champions at that. In top lane, we've already emphasized how important that is, so Meloncats have got a big void to fill right now, and I know that Zaclipse, who is the player that is standing in, has been playing Maokai. You would imagine he'd have to be playing Aurelia, and then Meloncats, when on red side, of course, are going to be banning out Nah anyway, so if you ban out Maokai and Aurelia, what do you leave Zaclipse on to actually play in this game? And honestly, there's not a lot of transition between support champions and top laners.
Yeah, and you look at Cyborg Factory and it's like, what do they decide to ban? Because you mentioned that Gnar is typically the red side ban as your last ban, but if you know the enemy top laner is not a top laner and he's only got like a couple champions in his arsenal, do you perhaps even leave Gnar open and say, well, you have to pick it because Gnar's open, or we'll take it from red side?
That's a tough ask, is you have to then put a player onto a champion in a role he doesn't play, in a champion that is very new to the game. And how do you balance that? Gnar's not even the easiest champion to play. We saw yesterday with the game from Ascension that we really couldn't get Whirly Bee into the game with Gnar until very, very late on. And even then it was a bit touch and go.
It was, and they decided to pick Hecarim into that one, and while it worked for a while, we just saw eventually that composition just kind of wins out because it is just that strong. You land one combo and it's all over. But we head into this game, and are we going to be seeing another Gnar? Because traditionally we say, well, Gnar's going to be banned every single game. Why would we see that? But in this case, it might be a potential gambit coming in from Cyborg Factory.
Yeah, the problem I have with that is if Meloncats don't ban out Gnar, then you put even worse of a situation. It's bad enough having to play a champion you don't play. Playing against a lane bully in a lane you don't play with a champion you don't play on another champion that you don't play is almost suicide. And Meloncats, I feel, have to pick Eclipse. Something like a Mundo, which is fairly passive, doesn't exactly have the highest skill cap to play, and kind of just scales throughout the game. We're not going to see anything all that tricky out from Meloncats. But how do Cyborg Factory pressure that out? Because you have to feel that Gilius and Dude are going to be some big playmakers here in this game. But let's not overlook Meloncats' mid laner as well.
Yeah, so he's actually got some very interesting picks in comparison to the rest of his team. We did a little bit of research ourselves on these players and fairly standard meta picks across the board. We talked about top lane and how there are a lot of meta picks, but he may not play them all. But in the mid lane, he likes his fizz, he likes his talent as well. Plus, some of the more traditional mid laners like Xerath as well. But definitely in the mid lane, his champion pool varies from some of the other mid laners we've seen recently.
Yeah, indeed. And we've already spoken about how he kind of plays a lot of fizz, expecting that if they had their standard top laner, you could very well synergize that with a Lissandra pick, something that has that wave clear, like a Victor as well. That's something we've kind of been seeing allowed into the mid lane, is those wave clearless champions like Fizz. But if a barrier goes for a Fizz and Eclipse isn't confident up in that top lane role, it's such a game changer.
It is indeed. So we've touched a lot on Meloncats. We've already mentioned that Cyborg Factory, definitely this random factor heading into this game. So what do they do in terms of target bans? Because Gnar, maybe it should be something that's left open by Cyborg Factory, that takes away a ban from Meloncats if they decide that's what they want to be banning away here. And then where do those other two bans go? Have they done their homework? Do they target it at someone in specifically? Or do they just do general meta picks or things they don't like to play against?
So, we are ready. We're heading into the picks and bans phase. Let's take a look at what Meloncats and Cyborg Factory have for us in our last game to decide who is going through to round 2 for the EU LCS expansion tournament.
All right, so taking quite a while on this first ban from Meloncats, but they will be locking in the Fresh to ban that one away here. So a fairly ambiguous ban, but for sure at the bottom lane support of Taki.
There goes the Aurelia. That's one of two that we know Meloncats have been training Eclipse on. And there's the Gnar ban. We saw it on Blue Side a little earlier this week, today with our broadcast. And man, this is going to be looking like a tough situation for Eclipse already.
So at least they did manage to take away the Gnar. Here comes a Jace ban coming in for the mid lane to take that one away from a barrier. Again, we didn't mention it, but it is another champion in his very wide and unconventional champion pool.
Yes, it is indeed. Third ban coming out from Meloncats, another bottom lane focused ban. Not one we've seen out all that much, but this kind of signals to me like they're looking for a Corki first pick.
Yeah, so Lucian comes out here as a ban. Lee Sin will be rounding out the banning phase. And we did see a lot of Lucian Corki yesterday, and hello, Eclipse will be locking in the Maokai. This is again the other pick that you mentioned before, Stress, that he has been training. So they took away the Irelia, forces him onto the Maokai. What does that leave Cyborg Factory to pick into something they basically knew he was going to pick?
I think at this point, Cyborg Factory take the Corki, and we saw Corki first pick earlier today. Lucian not available. And I honestly feel like Cyborg Factory, if they had the information of what Eclipse was playing, a good decision by them to ban out the Lee Sin, because then it forces them to take the Maokai or they take it away. But if they don't take out Corki from this lineup, Meloncats are kind of going to be given some fairly strong laners already.
Yeah, so Cyborg Factory actually decided to lock in the Janna, so they make sure they take away the high priority support, bring in the Kha'Zix as well. Lee Sin was banned out, Rengar was also up there, along with the Jarvan, even if they wanted to go for that, but they did prioritize the Kha'Zix. And as you mentioned, didn't take away the Corki. And do Meloncats decide to go for this one themselves?
Well, it looks like they decided to go back to the lobby for a sec, because must have had a client bug, as couldn't pick a champion. That tends to be
Bit of a problem
bit
when
of
you
a
head
problem.
into champion select. You do want to be able to pick your own champion, not just have to random brand and see how it goes.
Yeah, that wouldn't be too good. That's not what you want. Although it would have actually been right for Abaria because it was the mid laner that they were looking for.
That would have been a mid.
Maybe
pick.
it's in his picks. Who knows?
Yeah.
I would doubt it. Brand hasn't seen a lot of competitive play ever.
No, he has not. And well, he did back in season 2, if memory serves correctly.
Yeah, okay.
And he brand all day, every day.
True. I guess I should have said in the bot lane.
Yeah, that's true. Annie Brand.
Okay.
Strong bot lane.
We've also been told that Meloncats wanted Nami Corki in that kind of tier of picks. So that makes a lot of sense. That's what we were expecting. We were expecting the Corgi to go over to Meloncats. So we should get this started fairly soon, as fast as the Meloncats lineup are able to get back onto the client and into the game. But it has been a wild day.
It has. It has for you at least. I've not been casting, so I'm full of energy and watching all of those games unfold. Stress, absolutely crazy.
I lost my mind about 4 times during both series today because, man, we had everything. We had steals, we had comebacks, we had a big upset. If you guys missed any of the VODs from today, make sure you do check them out here on the channel. And there was some amazing games.
Yeah.
Really, truly amazing games being played today.
All of those will be available on LOL Esports. And also, while we're at it, tweet at us at LOL Esports using the hashtag LCS expansion. Get your thoughts on how you think this series is going to go and chat about how all the rest of the games went as well today. And we will be reading those when we get into the break. But more importantly, we're back into Champion Select picks and bans. We'll be going through the bans very quickly, and then we'll get the rest of the picks underway.
Hopefully they'll fly through this one. That would be good. Yeah, okay, good. They are going to not take their time on this one because we are itching to see what the rest of these lineups are going to be. So to recap, Maokai up in the top lane has been picked up. Janna and Kha'Zix on the side of Cyborg Factory, with the last 2 so far being Nami and Corki, which, to be honest, not a surprise to anybody. Corki has seen such a power spike in recent times. Ever since Worlds, just seen how strong Corki is in the mid-game, great at sieging towers, sieging objectives.
Indeed. So, they're hovering over the Rise. They did actually hover over Rise in their first rotation, but didn't decide to lock it in. Again, they're toying with the idea.
I don't think they should, because remember, Rise had a big nerf to his overload damage during every level. I believe it's something like 20 at level rank 1, and then 25, 30, 35, and 40 damage was reduced off everything. And that really impacts Rise's laning phase, who, up until that nerf, was a very strong laner in the top lane, but not anymore. He certainly cannot put up as much of a fight.
It's possible they may just lock this in regardless. Maybe that's something part of their top laner's champion pool that hasn't really changed as of recent days. And they do hover over that Tristana. We do have the Lucio, of course, taken away. And while we've been talking about the Rise, they do solidify that pick, lock that in alongside the Tristana.
I'm worried for Cyborg Factory right now. They have a big mid-game dip that is going to get exploited by Meloncats already. You look at a Corki, power in the mid-game. Maokai is great for absorbing damage in the mid-game fights as well as the late-game. Tristana has that natural dip, and her laning phase probably is not as strong as they need to go against a Corki and Nami. And then Rise has had that damage fall off as well. So this is an older composition. This is what we were expecting going into Worlds, but what came out of Worlds was a fair amount different.
And it's worth mentioning that, of course, Cyborg Factory are coming in from the EUNE side of things, so their meta is going to be a little bit different here. So they do go with this one. I know their meta is different, but I don't think it's got different. So we look at Meloncats here. They do decide to lock in the Jarvan. Touched briefly on that before as kind of the top trifecta of junglers coming into the new season. And Zed as well will be coming in for a barrier.
Yes, Zed, a champion that was left available, and Abaria does play Zed. We know that was in our research for him as a mid laner, and we're going to see a skill matchup here, as it's going to be the Ahri-Zed matchup once again. So all about the charm. If you can charm before Zed darts away to his shadows, you could be alright in that matchup, but other than that, Zed has far more mobility in and around the lane.
So now we have all of these picks locked in. We're looking down the line, looking for any trends here, Stress, that would signal what type of composition these guys are looking for. And we look at Meloncats, and it definitely looks, well, after you see a Maokai, you immediately think in your head, teamfight composition.
You do indeed, and then you add Jarvan on top of that, and these mid-game team fights are should go so well for Meloncats right now. You look at Abaria on Zed, able to pick off one person. Corki has insane burst damage as well. I'm worried for this Cyborg Factory mid-game dip, but can they get any kind of pressure in front of turrets for Cyborg Factory? They have Kha'Zix and Ahri. That's good pick potential, which can set them up fairly well, but when you're looking at pick, the worst thing for that, or to go against that, is, well, the best thing, to be honest, is hard engage. The worst thing to play against is hard engage.
That's accurate. So when we look at this lineup, it basically just screams to you, team late game. You get into the late game, you have the resets from Tristana, Kha'Zix, got Rise thrown in there for the mix, and just all that peel from Janna be very difficult to deal with.
Yes, indeed. But we are into the loading screen, which means we want to hear what you guys have to say.
Yes, indeed. So head over to Twitter and tweet at LOL Esports using the hashtag LCS expansion and get your thoughts over to us before we have this game starting up, and get your predictions in, because anything could happen in this series. As we've seen today, we've had upsets, we've had crazy games, we've had super long series, and I hope it doesn't change here.
I really hope it doesn't change, because although I'm going to be really tired at the end of this, it will be so worth it if we get another 3-game series with some epic games, which I really hope is the case.
And we'll be back next week as well with even more crazy games to come up, more even, to use the word again, crazy League of Legends action. So we'll see what happens there, but we're not even there yet, Stress. We have another best of 3 before we end the proceedings. I'm just waiting to get into game.
Yeah, crikey, he's loading slow. You won't get that unless you can see my screen, but we are about to head into the game. I'm sorry.
I wasn't expecting it.
Oh dear. It's actually not Corki either that's loading slow. It's Ahri. Yeah. Corki was loading a little slow, but you mentioned next week's games, which you know, there are some big teams featuring in next week's games.
Lots of familiar faces coming into this one. H2K, you may have heard of before.
Just a little
except
team.
Everyone in the LoL community. Millennium as well. We'll see how that one pans out as we get into next week. But we should be focusing on this game, Stress, because we have mere seconds before we get onto the Rift.
Yes, indeed. So, still not quite there. You know, it wouldn't be a Europe game without a slow load.
It wouldn't, and I don't want to jinx it, but it wouldn't be a European game without a pause. So, hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully.
We can get over that hurdle.
We're slowly creeping up. We're at 96% now. So, there's the play-by-play of the loading screen. But this is a very important game. We are making light of a situation with the loading screen, but this is game 1 of a best-of-3 series to determine who goes and advances to round 2 and puts them with, you know, close range of LCS. That's a good, just a couple of games away, potentially, from a spot in the LCS.
And we will be answering that question of who will be getting one step closer to the LCS as we get onto the Rift. In the bottom left-hand corner, sporting the blue colors, will be Melon Cats. Up in the upper right-hand corner, of course, will be Cyborg Factory, hailing from the EU NE server.
So, can our team from the Czech Republic do a good job, or good enough job, to get themselves into the second round? That really is the question.
Well, something that's already apparent to me, Stress, is both these teams are very happy and very happy to ping. They like their pings. I'm not sure how much information that's conveying, but there is a ping on top of that ward, so at least that makes sense. It's going to be the lines of scrimmage as we head into the first couple seconds of this game. No one looking to make an aggressive play just yet.
It has been a while, and by a while I mean a couple of weeks, but that in League meta, that is a while, since we have seen Rise in that top lane. And Meloncats already playing this out as a standard game. They are just putting down the wards early on, and I expect to see Eclipse get a fair amount of help up in this top lane. I don't think the jungle pressure is too necessary for the matchup as such, but if Gilius can get the ball rolling for Eclipse, this could be Gilius' path to redemption being sorted from that top lane.
So, everyone sitting in their jungles, we look across at the items as well, and there's not the biggest of differences, but it's interesting to note that there's a lot of biscuits over on the side of Cyborg Factory. One in the top lane kind of makes a little bit of sense on Ryze. He doesn't like to go deep into the utility mastery stress. But then you look at mid lane, Ahri as well, sporting the biscuits and the bot lane support.
Yes, indeed. Taking a look at the bottom lane, though, Meloncats are pushed up fairly far into this bush, and they're looking to set up that level 2 that we have seen time and time again, and they're actually going to get gifted a bit of an easier start here as well, because take a look at the Cyborg Factory bot lane. They actually started out helping their jungler on the buff, so that is a big misplay when it comes to getting that level 2.
Yeah, in the bot lane, they will be putting down a little bit of pressure, but that Tristana now showing a face. Haven't seen too much of that in the EU LCS expansion tournament. Been a whole lot of Lucian and a whole lot of Corki. Daoud putting down that damage onto Taki. Lots of trading back and forth, but it looks like MC, Meloncats bottom lane has won out slightly.
And the problem that Cyborg Factory are going to have here is the fact that they don't actually have the sustain from Janna. Nami, on the other hand, is going to heal up Crikey every time they trade and harass. And Tristana has a bad enough end of the laning phase and, you know, mid-game phase as it is, that coming out behind from this laning phase could be problematic.
Oh, bubble lands onto Tristana. Both of the AD carries get exhausted. Will be jumping forward. Uses the heal to get away, but now is he too overextended? He is in a good place. Lots of summoners burn, most of them from the side of Cyborg Factory.
Double summoners from Tristana and the exhaust from both supports. That is a big win in the bottom. Oh, bubble again!
Another Acro Prison followed with the Phosphorus Bomb. First blood, last auto attack by Daoud secures it.
And this is a reason why we haven't seen a lot of Tristana recently. She is just not a safe laner right now, especially against the likes of Corki when paired with a support that has harass and sustain. And that is a great start for Meloncats. They're going to say, okay, our top lane may not go the way we want it to, but across the map, we'll take the rest.
Yeah, looking very good for them so far. You mentioned in Champions Select, they are a mid-game focused team against a mid-game dipping team from Cyborg Factory, and this is just setting them up perfectly. Now, Liam goes into the jungle, tries to get something away here as he looks to counter jungle away from Gilius.
His counterpart, speaking of Gilius, headed into the mid lane.
There's the flag, there's the drag, heads onto Sheage in the mid lane. Flash comes out, lands the passive as well. Last tower shot plus the ignite isn't enough to pick him up in return. The answer is going to be a no. Will be escaping by the Skimmer's teeth. However, Kha'Zix is coming in, but Eclipse roams in from the top lane. Gets the jump over the wall, a smooth 1-0.
And for a top lane, or not a top lane main, Eclipse covering very well for Gilius there. Was not expecting to see him roam down. That was a very nice play out of Gilius to make sure they got that kill, and a great start for Meloncats.
So, looking very happy with this one so far. Gilius head back to base, well on his way to the Spirits of the Elder Lizard. Bot lane, already you can see the Sidestone picked up by Daoud. Perfect timing on those two item pickups.
Yeah, indeed. Now, Crikey is looking not to push this out too far because they want to exploit Tristana as she always pushes in towards the enemy lane, or the enemy turrets. Crikey wants to make sure that Tristana is as overextended as possible once she gets to the lane, and from there should be a fairly easy pickup for Gilius because no flash available now makes for an easy gank.
How much impact can Gilius make on this game? As I mentioned before, in Champions Select, he has that world experience, of course, subbing in for SK in those first 3 games. And can he use that experience? Can he get this to work out for his team? As Kha'Zix comes into the top lane, will be placing down the Taste of Their Fear, of course, the passive of Unseen Threat, but it wasn't enough threat to do and dish out the damage to Eclipse, who does carry on farming.
Shiage has to be careful in the mid lane. Take a look at Gilius' positioning. He may be looking to set up another gank here, as Ahri does not have her flash, remember. If Shiage pushes out here, Gilius could catch her out, but there we go. Does ward up. It's a little bit late, but the thought process is there.
So, we'll be slightly secured here, as the ping goes down into that ward. Gilius, assuming that it may be a pink, might be able to head in here, clear it out. And there comes the flag. That is 100 gold down the drain for the mid lane of Shiage.
Yeah, I mean, no wards were gained from that bubble again.
Again, Iaka Prison, 3 in a row, tic-tac-toe, and it will not be Tristana going down, but takes a huge amount of damage, forces him back to the turret.
This bottom lane, I do not understand why you would pick yourselves into a corner like this, especially when you've picked such a weak top laner right now. And yes, the top lane is not going drastically wrong for Rise, but it certainly is not a comfortable matchup anymore. And my goodness, Cyborg Factory have a lot of confidence getting to the late game if they really think they can compete here against Meloncats using a Tristana.
Left and right, all over the board, everyone is getting punted around by Cyborg Factory, and this is kind of how you would expect on paper these lanes to go, Stress. And it's just working out as intended. Everyone is ahead on farm. Large CS disparity in the bottom lane, but in the mid lane we do have Idiom coming in from the backside. Our barrier, does he have the ability to get away with it? He will head in with this one with the death mark.
Massive.
That will be a dead Kha'Zix as it ticks down. And Shield trying to get something back onto Gilius, but not even close with the damage.
Really nice by Gilius again, and I feel like I'm going to be saying that quite a lot this series. Gilius is a well-experienced player that is starting to set up his mid laner very well, and this is why we see Zed banned out, because he's got a kill and an assist to his name, and this is going to be a very difficult lane if Cyborg Factory want to turn it on its head.
Yeah, he has a lot of experience. Not only was he in Worlds, but also with Unicorns of Love as well as they made their way into the LCS. This time, looking to make his own way into the LCS with his own team. And so far, it's looking like this is a well-trodden path that he's following.
Yes, indeed. And, you know, Gilius has found himself a substitute on a couple of big rosters. You already mentioned SK at Worlds and Unicorns of Love in their promotion game. Funnily enough, against, oh no, that was against Millennium, who is a potential contender. So maybe Gilius could get some revenge on that. But this, as you said, his own team, the problem is they've had that setback, and can Gilius do enough?
So far, looks like he is. 2 kills he has been helping out with in this game. Trying to snowball that throughout the early game here. Has gone back to base, and talking about snowballing, has opted towards the mobility boot of all items.
He's going to be able to get into lane far more often now, or at least far faster. As Jarvan with mobility boots is fairly difficult to contend with, but that's something that we know from Gilius, is he goes Sightstone, he goes one longsword, and then typically picks up his mobility boots on his junglers.
Right.
And that from there makes him a lot more versatile. A little bit less damage, but that doesn't really matter when you're getting so many of your lanes fed.
So 9 minutes into the game, 3 kills go over to Meloncats. A significant CS advantage in the form of 2,000 gold. You take a look at the warding coverage as well, and it's fairly even over the board. Mid lane, Deathmark comes in, and Shield is ticking down with the Ignite as well. Stand still, he knows his fate, and will be dropping one-on-one in the mid lane.
1v1 kills are not what you want from your mid laner unless you're the ones getting them. As Zed is now 2-0-1. This lane is going really badly now for Ari. We spoke about it being a skill matchup. Gilius assisted with that. And now from there, he's going to be able to take down a dragon. Let's take a quick look, however, at the damage difference in the bottom lane. Tristana did manage to get a pickaxe, which, when you look at the items right now, you'd think, oh, pickaxe against the makings of a phage. That must be going very well for Tristana. And then you look at the farm and realize that Corki is sat on 2,000 gold right now and hasn't really been pressured out of the lane in a very long time. So he's going to back away pretty soon, I would imagine. Finish up that phage, grab the sheen, and be well on his way to a big power spike.
Yeah, I mean, he's actually getting to the point where he could almost complete a Trinity Force, and as you mentioned, it doesn't look like he's being pressured out of this lane. It's starting to get on the horizon of doubling the farm of his counterpart, which is not a scoreline you see every day.
Really is not, and especially when you'd expect these to be somewhat close.
So you just get pinned to the wall by this monsoon, but Kha'Zix is a little bit too far away. There comes the tidal wave, we'll be knocking them back. Ebb and Flow, is it enough to keep him alive? Yes it is, plus the health potion. So lots of ultimates burned, and the Jungler time yields no results.
Nothing really for it, and I mean, you look at this kind of setup, Crikey is going to be able to clear this wave fairly quickly, but top lane, let's take a look.
Gilius comes in with the flag and drag, doesn't decide to use his ultimate, had the flash as well if he wants to use it, but didn't connect the big CC movement. And that will signal for Gilius to head out.
It will indeed, but gets the pretty... Ooh, I thought that charm may have connected there. Ping's going down wildly onto the jungle on the lower side, but Gilius is headed back up top again. He stood on a ward though, so I don't expect Rise to fall from this.
He's now heading all the way around to the back of the turret. He's just looking for the dive regardless. He's sticking around. Here's the flank and drag. And Eclipse will just pop his ultimate. Tanks the tower as well, just in case Gilius wants to make a speedy exit. But Idiom now heads into the top lane. See if he can clear out the minion wave. But now he's just going to be dived as well. Gilius still has the ultimate. The flank and drag will be duking out the way of it, but can't juke the second one as well. Gilius will be flashing away from the turret. Eclipse, does he have enough damage? He will just need a couple more seconds. Here comes the sapling. Doesn't land that one, but does have the Twisted Advance along with the Arcane Smash, and now is just a chasing game.
He's
Gilius
isolated.
has to be careful though. Idiom will get locked up, and Eclipse takes him one-on-one with the assist going to Gilius. A 2-0 in total.
A little bit messy up in that top lane, but again, maybe that's because Eclipse, not a top lane main, didn't really preempt Kha'Zix just going into the bush, but they clean it up nonetheless, and I have to feel going into that fight, we were saying Ryze really shouldn't have stuck around bottom lane.
Taki is getting punished here. He will have to flash away, and the barrier comes in from the mid lane.
Easy
he does
kill.
have his ultimate, he does have his flash, but doesn't decide to go in on it.
It would have been an easy kill should he looked for it, but I feel like when you're this far ahead, another kill on a support is great, but if you can pressure out with a minion wave on the turret and force them to stick around, maybe you can get more than one kill here. Maybe Meloncats would be looking for something if it weren't for Shiage turning up.
Yeah, just the fact that he was off the map temporarily may have just been enough for them to say, okay, let's dial it back a bit. We are 6-0 over our counterparts, plus that extra tower. We have a 5,000 gold advantage, and we netted that original dragon. So far, they have nothing too much to fear. But what Kha'Zix has to fear is a barrier heading up the river. Gilius coming in from behind. He will pull the old switcheroo as he jukes out of the way of the flank and drag and will get back to safety.
And if they've got nothing to fear, that might explain why Idiom is currently 0-2. He's not really finding his grounding in this game, and he has to get the ball rolling fairly soon. They're even on CS, but look at the effect that Gilius has had on this game. This is the mark of a well-experienced player, and look at the switch up here. Meloncats have put their duo lane in the mid because Zed was already winning that lane, and Tristana is so far behind that Abaria can probably just all-in Sane if he really wants to.
Well, it's in a little bit of a precarious position.
Oh,
we'll play
top
it
lane.
safe. Top lane, everyone is converging. Here comes Gilius. Will sidestep the flank and drag. Here comes the Tana wave. Do they decide to go for this dive? Eclipse is leading a charge. He will take point, but the aggro will switch to Nami, meaning that they can make a very easy escape. Gilius takes a couple tower shots on the way out, but is quite happy with that result.
This is just good map control by Meloncats. They know exactly where the summoners are down and how much they can really pressure out. And Abaria, ooh, just from a couple of abilities, is shredding through the health of Tristana, who has picked up that Avarice Blade. We had seen, as Tristana was being played, a lot of Static Shift being picked up as a first item, but it's going to be late here. It's going to be very late compared to Trinity Force Corki, which is already completed. So he's already matched, or at least made his damage spike for this mid-game period.
Yeah, and he picked it up at around 13 minutes as a Trinity Force is quite good as you get into games like
in
this.
the bottom lane.
Abaria,
And they
can he get
though?
away from this situation? There comes the Living Shadow.
Nice charm.
Scrap that. He uses his ultimate, jukes away as well. Skill shots all go awry, and Abaria makes a nice escape.
I missed about as many words in that sentence as Ari did the charm, because I was going to say nice dodge of the charm, but Shiage not quite finding it. Eclipse does eat a charm on that one.
Well, he teleported in from the top lane. That's a big cooldown to come out, especially as they weren't able to get in range, so they didn't make use of that. But honestly, one summoner spell going down for the amount of ground and acceleration they picked up in this game stress, I don't think they're going to be too concerned.
No, I really don't think they're going to be too worried about that. Let's take a quick look at the items, however. 201Z currently sat on 2,000 gold, means although he's only got a build water now, as soon as he heads back, he can either complete some of those items, maybe even look for, you know, a more aggressive set of items from this as well. I was thinking perhaps he might opt for a Hex Drinker, but that would play a little more defensively, and I don't really think he needs it right now. Sometime in this game might be very effective against the Ryze, but here's the fight.
Gilius has just locked in Sejian in the top lane with his ultimate. Crikey walks up to the fight, throws out a couple auto attacks, and those Sheen augmented auto attacks will rip him apart in no time. Gilius just get hit up by the combo from Shiage, but it's not a lot of damage, and they will start off this second dragon. And Idiom is around the side, trying to pull off a miracle steal. Throws out the Void Spikes, but decides better of it. He may even still get caught out by him, Barrier, who decides to juke back in. Oh, again, jukes the Charm using his own Death Mark. Heads in, flash out of the way of the tidal wave, which would have secured his death. And makes a speedy retreat back to his team.
Meloncats pick up the Dragon, though, and that's even more gold in the pocket of a champion like Zed. 2,500. Let's take a look at what he does end up backing with. But Meloncats are in such a good position now. They are going to get another turret. This is looking to be somewhat of a whitewash of a game.
This is just textbook all over the board by Meloncats. They are doing everything right. They pick up a kill, they pick up an objective, and the cycle repeats. It's just rinse and repeat as we head through this game, edging on the 10,000 gold mark. Only around 8,000 gold at the moment, but 17 minutes in, proportionally, that is huge.
That is a massive difference, and it leads to a big disparity in items. Take a quick look. Ari, currently on the makings of a Zhonya's. Does she have enough to convert that? No, still about 250 gold away. But her lane opponent completed Blade of the Ruined King and a Brutalizer with Mercury Treads. Makes Zed a very powerful champion to deal with here.
So, everyone will be looking to head back here. Talking about difficult champions to deal with, Gilius sitting in the jungle, the one-man Death Bush. Look to head up here. We'll be clearing up this pink ward as he spots it with his own. And just the fact that he can be so aggressive and so comfortable in the opposing jungle kind of just tells the tale of this game.
Yeah, and another tale of this game really has been the expectations of top lane. And I'll be honest, Eclipse has done a great job so far. We knew Maokai was one of the champions that he was playing and practicing, and he has done a good enough job here. He is 1-0-2, and I think that is commendable. But to some extent, the Ryze pick was a little bit questionable out of Cyborg Factory.
That being said, late game is the name of the game for Cyborg Factory. It's just a question of whether they can get there, because currently it doesn't look like that's going to happen, Stress, as they are edging on 10,000 gold behind their counterparts. 3 towers down. Can they hold the line? Can they draw that line in the sand, make sure they can go no further? And Gilius is heading around the side, seeing if he can find himself a pick.
One thing that's going to make it difficult to get through this mid-game period is the Aegis of the Legion already being completed on Nami. That's really strong against a double AP composition in this mid-game phase, and it's going to buy Meloncats a lot of time before they actually have to start worrying about any kind of magic resistance. So, Cyborg Factory somehow have to find the damage here.
And I'm not sure it's going to be coming. There is nothing behind that rallying call. Shiaj heads to the top lane. He's your laner. Go deal with him. And
easier said than done right now.
Absolutely. A barrier in the top lane. We're clearing up this minion wave, and with Gilius trying to head around the side. We'll be spawning out Taki, so we'll be able to be that aggressive that quickly. And all in all, Meloncats have kind of dispersed away from this one. A barrier. Let's take a full combo from Shiaj. And he decides to turn tail. And now red buff has spawned. It looks like the point of contention for these two junglers.
It does. Gilius. And both junglers actually have their smite available, so who gets it?
Will
looks like
be
it was
the team of Melon Cats, and there's the Monsoon for the disengage. Idiom takes a huge amount of damage. Gilius has the Cataclysm, locks up Taki, will be forcing his flash as well. So summoners across the board have been burnt. Here comes a barrier, here comes a Deathmark, and there goes a dead Tristana. Crikey comes in for a very aggressive play. 1 versus 3. You are not the front line, Cookin. He will be punished for it.
That was a little bit over-aggressive from Crikey, as he is 1-1-1-1, but feels like he's far further ahead right now because of that damage spike. But top lane is still under a lot of threat here from Meloncats, and Shiaj is trying to hold it with his wave clear.
Flag, drag, here comes the tidal wave. Will be Zhonya'd out of this one. How much more CC and how much more damage do they have? Evan Flow comes out, and that will be Diode finishing them off with a nice little auto attack to come out ahead on that one.
But in the middle lane, look at a barrier again, is pushing down a turret, and Idiom jumps in. This is just Zed in full split push mode. 10-1 to the kills now overall between these two teams.
And Cyborg Factory are just being juggled. They just need more members on their team to keep up with the aggression from Meloncats. And that is not something that's available in League of Legends, so they're going to have to come up with a different option.
Yeah, I mean, you know, we've brought coaches into the LCS now, or in this game, even bringing coaches into the game.
Yeah.
But I don't think that allows you actually 6 members, so that's a step further than I think we can go to. But in this game, Dragon is up 55 seconds. Meloncats are looking very comfortable because they know their composition at this point in the game has so much more damage than Cyborg Factory. Look at Tristana, has a mid-game dip anyway as a champion. And in this game, BF Sword Pickaxe, Avarice Blade, no completed item. And that is pretty much the story all the way down the list of items here for Cyborg Factory. They just do not have any competing items with Meloncats.
Yeah, their big items consist of a Rod of Ages and a Zhonya's Hourglass. That is bare bones when you compare that to the lineup of Meloncats.
Yes, indeed. Zed now even has that Ghost Blade as well and a red potion. So if ever he was going to be strong, now is his time. As we've seen him banned out in quite a few of the games today and just across the recent competitive times in general. And I would say that every time we have seen him, you kind of see why he's banned away.
Yeah, this game.
Yeah.
So, Cranky, the rest of the team taking away this dragon, just building up their gold total even more. A barrier in the mid lane, uses the death mark, heads on back, doesn't have enough damage with that tick from the ultimate. It will force Saiyan back to base. Gilius has found himself. Kha'Zix, however, there's the flag and drag. Oh,
the tidal wave
gets
gets him
with the tidal wave. Now comes in the Cataclysm to cut off the escape route. Taki is still cut off from his team, but a barrier doesn't have his death mark from that previous engagement. Still, a 1-for-1, a 1-for-0. Not a bad trade.
The exhaust was used onto a barrier, though, and he didn't have death mark. Typically, you want to save that as much as possible, and Meloncats are going to swing around to the top lane. However, does this leave Crikey a little bit vulnerable in the bottom lane? Should Ryze and Tristana look to engage?
Frankie playing it a little more defensively than he was perhaps doing so before. Top lane will just be falling to Meloncats, not an objective that Cyborg Factory want to be contesting at this stage. 5-0 now in turret. Everyone heads back to base on Meloncats. Everyone has over 1,000 gold to spend in their back pocket and edging on 2,000 gold for Crikey. And this is just going from bad to worse.
It truly is, and the CS disparity between a lot of these lanes is far more than you would really want at the 23-minute mark. This is not the performance out of Cyborg Factory that they were hoping for. But Meloncats are turning up here, and it hasn't seemed to have phased them too much with their top laner being changed.
Almost seamless heading into this game. Yes, it was a little iffy when we headed into the top lane, but it at least just reacted to those ganks. A barrier uses his Ghost Blade in the bottom lane. We'll head on to Kha'Zix regardless. The rest of the cavalry has arrived. That will mean he'll be making a hasty retreat back to his minion line. His team was there, but not as fast as Cyborg Factory's reaction.
You can see the thought process there in Barrier's mind. He was like, oh, I'll disengage this now that I've seen Kha'Zix is here, but hang on, I just half-healthed him with 2 abilities. Maybe I can actually go in. Not the case.
No, I'm leaving again.
There's 4 people there. You're not able to go in like that. But what it has allowed Meloncats to do is secure vision, and I will draw your eyes to the map control here. Here is Meloncats' vision. As you can see, they have just started the Baron, and then we take a quick look at Cyborg Factory. They don't have vision past the Wolf camp on their own side, so they have no idea this is happening.
Yep, Cyborg Factory are blinder than Lee Sin, and they will not know that this Baron is going on. And they will not be able to even contest it, nor will they be able to get a timer on it. And Meloncats, oh, Zed now has a Baron buff.
I have to feel that there's a little bit of a misplay here out by Sane. By now, he really should have that blue trinket. Charm did land.
Yeah, he actually duped into it, but we'll be going for this one-on-one against him. Meanwhile, the rest of the team, Tidal Wave was expended, heading back to the mid laners. Here comes the Zhonya's Hourglass, a barrier, not in good shape. We'll be duking out of the way of a couple skill shots. Now comes in Tristana from the side. This is very messy to kick off the fight. Eclipse comes in from the top lane, a barrier as well. He will be taking him out with his ultimate. Vengeful Maelstrom. Now Tristana heads into the jungle and makes the wise move to head back to his team and not waste time chasing.
Yeah, but look at the push out from Meloncats. They're already in front of the inhibitor turret, and right now they're going aggressive.
They have caught out Kha'Zix, and he drops where he stands. No chance of getting away. Mid turret will be dropping, and he moves on promptly to this inhibitor.
That's an inhibitor falling. 3 members still dead. I wondered if Meloncats feel confident enough. Another pick may open this up, but it is a tough task to get 2 Nexus turrets, especially with Janna there as well.
Flag and drag into the AD carry, and he just explodes. Pop goes Tristana. They will be moving on to the Nexus turrets. Make that the second, make that the Nexus itself. And Meloncats find themselves a very decisive victory in the first game of this best of 3 up against Cyborg Factory.
That was a far faster game than any of our previous games today, and Meloncats certainly with a point to prove with that slightly different lineup. That was impressive.
It was impressive. That pretty much sums up the game here, Stress. It was textbook. It was doing everything that they had to do at every point in the game, and there was very few flaws in their plan. We didn't really see too many slip-ups from their play. Some of it, I guess most of it, was just looking at Eclipse that dodgy teleported in the bot lane, but other than that, a pretty solid performance.
Yeah, and he didn't die from it either, so he's 2-0-2 in that game, so fair credit to Eclipse. He found his role there pretty well.
He did indeed. So anyway, you guys, we will be prepping ourselves for the second game of this best of 3, so we will be right back after this short break. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Apologies again for the delay. I'm losing the ability to speak, but hopefully they have not lost the ability to pick these bans as we head into Champion Select once again, and we try and make sure it will work out this time, but it's looking a lot better on our side. So, going through all those bans once again, they will be exactly the same as we saw them before, Stress. And the first pick will be Jarvan, now coming in for Cyborg Factory.
Yes, it will indeed. So, Maokai has been banned away. That is one thing to take note of as we head into this game. And actually was banned out, interestingly, by Melon Cats, who obviously gave that Maokai over to Eclipse last game. So, feeling like they don't want Cyborg Factory to have such a strong top laner. And this is the first game that we've seen all of the champions banned out. Irelia, Na, and Maokai. That's what we were expecting to see banned out all tournament long.
Yes, but now you look at Eclipse, and what's he going to pick in the top lane? We know his champion pool is small. Either way, Nami and Lucian have been picked up. Mentioned this before when we went through Champion Select, but now we're looking at the new picks coming in here by Cyborg Factory. They are hovering over this Cassiopeia. We have seen that by another team you may know, Unicorns of Love. Their mid laner, Power of Evil, just like that champion. But we look at that top lane. What's Eclipse going to be picking in here? What's for certain is Syndra, now taken here by Cyborg Factory.
Yeah, I think that is a pretty solid pickup here, looking at the picks and bans. Obviously, you know, Cyborg Factory looking pretty confident with a pickup like that. Just to clarify, the teams have reordered ever so slightly, so you know they'll be a little bit out of order here when they finish the swap-ups.
Yeah, so it is. It's not the AD carry playing mid lane now. It is, in fact, just the top laner moving into the bottom. So that shouldn't cause too much confusion, but they have picked the Janna. And what we have also done is gone back into Team Select because it looks like a barrier is still having some issues.
Yeah, this is becoming a big issue now, that a barrier is not really being able to go through Champion Select. So this is something that is acting up a good few times now, and a barrier seems to be late connecting to the lobby every time, but then seems to connect.
Well, yeah, that was the good sign. We were like, okay, maybe it's going to work out this time, but maybe 5th time's the charm. Who knows?
How many times is it going to be the charm?
I don't know. Pick a random number. It has to be just like the arbitrary number that comes in here. But, okay, so we will be trying another solution. We'll see how this one works out. So we already spoke about the bans, but I want to touch on it again. So Eclipse, we know those champions that have been banned out are pretty much the ones he's been practicing right now. Where does that leave him?
Well, where does that leave him? Okay, we're into picks and bans again. Let's see if this actually works this time. Abari is in the lobby, is in the Champion Select phase again. 5th time lucky?
Touch wood.
Here's where perhaps we see Eclipse go. Eclipse is a player that is Masters rank in solo queue. So that's not to be underestimated. It means he's got a fair amount of experience, at least towards the highest echelon of play. So does he pick up one of those more solo queue picks, or the oddball picks that we were kind of expecting? Does he go for a Victor or a Lissandra? Does he go for something that's been played a lot in top lane of a Rumble? How comfortable is he with those matchups? That is what we're going to have to see now with the top lane picks all banned out.
Indeed. So, now we take a look at all the bans and all the picks we've seen so far. This is the moment of truth. Now here, Stress.
Can he pick?
Syndra picked up, so is Janna for that bottom lane support.
He hasn't picked anything yet.
The tension is high.
Not hovering over anything either. I'm a little bit worried about this passage here. At least hover. So he's hovered.
He's hovered the pick, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes.
Xerath now looking at here, and we know this is in his champion pool. We spoke about how it is a little bit unorthodox compared to other mid laners. Likes his fizzes, likes his talons as well. And the Xerath here is a pick that he could bring into the mix.
Yes, it is. And actually would do fairly well against Syndra. So Syndra looks to use that long-range stun. That's a long stun if you have to get to a Xerath to land, but still not decided on what he does want. Corki is not going to be an option for Meloncats. They've already got the Lucian locked in alongside Nami. So with Lee Sin banned away and Jarvan picked already, Kha'Zix is the better option. They were thinking perhaps about the Elise, but my word, that's a Katarina.
Yes, it is. Katarina in the mid lane. We knew Godbro had this as a pocket pick, but I don't think we knew that a barrier did as well. So he'll be taking this one up against Syndra in the mid lane. And while we have been seeing a couple Katarinas, they have been picking them into pretty funky matchups.
Yeah, there have been a couple of weird matchups that Katarina has been played into. Zed is one of them. It's a very risky matchup, but something that would offset a lot of that Katarina's presence if they did choose to lock it in, they are thinking about it, would be that Kayle, because of course you put the intervention on somebody, doesn't get that initial kill, doesn't get the reset, and really will struggle, but we are waiting to see what exactly is going to be picked up. I have to imagine Cyborg Factory are going to pick up Corki here. They are still waiting for their AD carry. And if they go for Ryze again, it just didn't really go so well for them in the last game. And I think that Meloncats are going to have a good few options up in that top lane, but Mundo may be a better option. Oh!
Wow, okay, so Draven locked in here for Cyborg Factory, and we said, well, backs up against the wall. Will they bring in something here as a curveball, something that may be a little bit different? That one is for certain. Draven comes out in the bottom lane with Janna.
And that's a lot of damage in that bottom lane. Draven and Janna using the shield together is going to be a very strong dueling bot lane. But they are against Lucian and Nami. So can they contend with the double shot passive and the sustain that's going to come from Nami in that bottom lane? We'll have to watch as we go into game. But everything locked in apart from the last pick. Mundo allows for a lot of options in that top lane role. What does Eclipse feel comfortable on? Will we see an AP champion into it? Could be an option here. Not always the best against Mundo because he does fairly well against double AP, but Rumble is available.
He might be able to just do just enough to bully him out. And I would be interested if they pick up Rumble here because we know that Eclipse's champion pool is small. To have Rumble in there, he's a mechanically demanding champion.
It does get locked in as well, and you are right by saying that. Rumble is a very mechanic-heavy champion. You have to balance your overheat properly when going into engages. You have to trade very well on the lead-up to an all-in. And if you can't balance that in lane, especially against somebody like Mundo who's going to sustain up very well, you lose a lot of lane pressure.
Yeah, so I'm excited to see how this one works out. Lots of interesting picks coming out. The Katarina in the mid lane for a barrier, the Draven from the side of Cyborg Factory, but what does this mean for their general compositions? Now, we saw Cyborg Factory last game looking for that late game composition. Didn't work out too well. Meanwhile, Meloncats went for that very traditional team fight. This
is a much earlier game composition out of Cyborg Factory. They have a lot more to contend with in the mid-game, but I want to take a quick look over on Meloncats. Kha'Zix and Katarina, that's Reset City here, and Equalizer is going to drop their enemies pretty low, and could mean that that's a very precarious position for Cyborg Factory. This game could end very quickly.
Well, I feel like this series has been blown wide open. Anything could happen in this game. Curveball picks left, right, and center. But I don't know what our predictions are for this game, but we're excited to see what you have to say. So head over to Twitter, go up to LOL Esports and use the hashtag LCS expansion to get your thoughts over to us and see what you think is going to happen in this game and indeed this series, because Meloncats just need one more win to progress onto the next round of the LCS expansion tournament.
And it may very well be the last chance to do so today, because this could be the last game. We are 1-0 up in this series, so do get your tweets in. We do like to read them as well and get all your feedback on your thoughts of the teams in the expansion tournament. And heck, even give yourselves some long-term predictions. And who do you think is going to make it to LCS? That's a big question as we filter out all of our challenger teams and remain with 2 teams that'll be taking those last 10 spots as we expand the LCS.
So we haven't seen all the teams just yet, but we've seen a fair chunk of them as we've headed into this first weekend. So we head into this game. Still looking at that Draven. Excited to see how this one works out, Stress, because the other challenger player that comes to mind when you think of Draven is, of course, Freeze.
Yeah.
Used to play on NIP. So, like, is there another player who can replicate his strengths on that champion?
Well, Draven is a champion that is difficult to get going right now. He has a fair amount of damage when you can juggle his axes very well, but his old passive used to give him so much more trading potential in lane that his new one does that a couple of players stopped playing him after they took away that early damage. However, if you can get kills on Draven, the stacking passive does a great job at making sure that he can stay up when it comes to the gold in-game. But speaking of in-game, it might be time for our last game.
Absolutely. Let's take a look at how this one's going to work out as we head on to Summoner's Rift with Cyborg Factory now in the bottom left-hand corner on the blue side and the upper right-hand corner looking at the red team. Now of Meloncats looking to secure their second win and secure their spot in the next round of the EU LCS expansion tournament.
And what a champion to put them in that position. Katarina is basically, I don't want to say a coin flip champion, but if you get 1 kill in a team fight, you pretty much clean that entire thing up. But if you can be deterred by a champion like a Mundo, who has a lot of health, is a great frontline champion, that is a tricky spot to be in for that mid-game phase.
So, wards come down in the river. Nothing too different from what we've seen so far. And now support will be just pushing each other out, trying to get every little bit of information they can. Cyborg Factory this time being the most aggressive. Put down a little bit of harassment onto Gilius, which will force him out, force him back to base. They do get their aggressive wards onto this red, meaning that they will have that early knowledge of Gilius' jungle path.
It's a very awkward engaged timing there. As Gilius was forced back, he will just about get to his buff on time. But being forced away means they couldn't really deter that ward going down. I'm interested, though, to see this bottom lane matchup. How can Sane pressure out early game? And I will also just adjust the scoreboard, as I'm sure you guys have already noticed it's not quite in line.
Yeah, that was unfortunately one of the evils that we had to put up with to try and get this game rolling. Not too bad, though, as we see in the bottom lane, both duo lanes are up in their bush, pushing forwards, and Sane will head out of that bush, throw down the first whirling axe, and get the first bit of harassment down onto his counterpart of Crikey.
Yeah, you saw the empowered axe there, and the shield from Taki, so they got a good amount of damage down onto Crikey already in this lane, and Sane is already doing a good job of juggling 2 axes.
Yeah, so he's clearly got the mechanics down. No longer, as you mentioned, has that Wicked Blades passive, has been changed up to the League of Draven passive, which means that for every stack he acquires on his Adoration, it will be increasing the bounty he gets when he picks up a kill onto a champion.
But we could be a long way off a kill in this lane. I wonder. There is the level 2.
Oh, and there's the double bubble onto Taki and Sane. This is not looking good. You do not want to be dying here as Draven takes a piercing light and the double tap from Crikey onto Taki, and he will take an early back to base.
Double Summoners was forced out from there, so that is going to speed up our potential for a kill perhaps, but Draven already falling a little bit behind in this matchup. That's actually a big stun in the middle lane as well.
Yeah, so these pocket picks maybe not working out all that well. Katarina taking a lot of punishment in the mid lane, a barrier sporting that champion, and Shiaj with this Syndra in the mid lane. More of a meta pick, see that all the time nowadays. Now, Idiom heads up into the middle lane. He will be waiting here for a fair while if he wants to go for a gank or even a dive if that's on the cards. Yet another sphere will be landing. These dark spheres are starting to mount up. Ignite is here, uses the flash, and the barrier is playing with fire.
That flash, if the dark sphere had landed, Shiaj had Ignite ready for that situation, but was not in range, and that is a miss flash there on a champion that is very vulnerable without that flash, and no escape on Syndra makes this a very tough next couple of minutes here in that mid lane.
taking a look now at the top lane, Eclipse actually not having too bad of a start. Decided to start up with the Ruby Crystal of all items up against this Mundo, and has put a decent amount of harassment down onto him.
Yeah, and they're going to exploit Mundo's early laning phase, because here comes Gilius as they start to push into the top lane. He is thinking about this, still has double buffs for another couple of seconds, but does he feel confident to get into the lane?
He doesn't feel like Mundo's in kill range. So the answer is no, Stress.
The answer is no, but is he going to be around for the counter gank? That is, well, I mean, Abari is going to have Shunpo available. He has a Trinket Ward on him as well.
Okay, what's Abari's play? There's the ward jump. Now Kha'Zix comes in from behind. A little bit split from his ally, means he will just toss out the Void Spikes, make his presence known, and head back into his jungle.
Bottom lane, there was a big trade again, and look at Sane. He's already falling behind in CS, and Crikey is doing a good job so far of keeping control of that lane. He's already been able to go back and pick up a longsword and health potions and a mana potion to make sure they can trade.
Lots of damage in the bottom lane. Taki has to flash away, but the Evan Flow comes out. Flash forwards into the first blood. Mid lane, however, Shiaj will be dropping as well. Make that a 2-for-0 in total over the map, and the Ignite was not enough to come in for a return kill.
It was not indeed, but Crikey is just doing a great spot here in that bottom lane. He is really pressuring out this Draven early on, 29 CS to 21. And the Draven is not working out. That is something we can pretty much put in the books now already.
Aqua Prison does land onto that Draven. And again, Dialed is just on point. He set up the original kills in the first game. Looking to do the same in the second. The supports really just have been doing work. And clearing out the rest of the minion wave. Sane will be catching up a little bit, but is firmly behind in this early game. So now that CS advantage in the bottom lane, CS advantage in the mid lane and the top lane, it's looking very much like game one.
It really is. It's looking like game one all over again. Eclipse is actually balancing his overheat fairly well here. You see he drops to under 50, and I was expecting him to keep it over 50, so maybe not so well. I was trying to give him some praise there. Looked like he was doing it very well within the trade, but let it drop afterwards.
Maybe a bad time. We'll come back later and see if he makes an impressive play. But mid lane, again, gets harassed down. Katarina does have that level 6 advantage over her counterpart of Syndra. See if a barrier can make use of that. Junglers, so far, just working their way through their jungle. Looks like we will have Idiom picking up that very aggressive build of the Boots of Mobility before he even goes into a jungle item though.
This is very reminiscent of what Gilius will do on Jarvan. We saw it in the previous game. He picked up the Mobility Boots even before the Elder Lizard was completed, so he is no stranger to being aggressive from the jungle role. But Syndra is pushing up, has their jungler there, but here comes Gilius as well.
This is shaping up to be a 2 versus 2, and Gilius shows his face, and that's literally exactly what happened before. Does the loop around and walks off. And
Gilius is just seeing what's up. He just wants to say hey in that lane. Not a lot to happen there. I wonder whether they read that the counter gank was there from Idiom, but time for the second buffs to spawn. And I wonder, are they going to give Katarina the blue buff, or will Gilius take that for himself?
That is a good question. As we get into the early game, the vision control is firmly on the side of Meloncats. In fact, there are no wards currently down for
Stun
the
lands
side
and
of
the tower aggro.
Cyborg Factory. Multiple stuns have been landing in the mid lane Stress, and Shiaj doesn't always follow up on them, but it only seems like a matter of time before one stun will equal a kill. But playing it a little bit more defensively, which may be the right call.
Crikey's on his own, though. They're chasing onto him.
He's getting split up. Sane puts down some damage with the spinning axes, returns with the Howling Gale for the disengage. Kha'Zix did toy with the idea of heading into the bot lane, but what he's doing is Gilius sat in this red buff bush. Idiom will be starting off his red and actually turns around. He is isolated, hits him with the Taste Their Fear, follows it with the leap as well. He's completely out of mana, but will have to burn the flash. Taki is here, and Gilius doesn't decide to dive. Probably the right decision, put the ward over the wall. Now everyone is collapsing in, and he's just keeping him in place. Sane comes in, but knocks him away with the standard side, jumps over the wall and catches in those adoration stacks.
That was a very risky play out by Gilius, and I'm not sure he even needed to go for that. He'd already pushed Jarvan away from his red buff. And that was just over-aggressive towards the bottom side of the map, and that may even be enough to bring Draven back into this game.
That was a fair chunk of change he picked up off the back of that, and 1,400 gold in his back pocket. Not too shabby at all. Just needs a couple more 100 gold, and he would be well on his way to a BF sword.
So let's take another look at the mid lane matchup here. Katarina into Syndra. And you have to think, if the stuns don't land anymore for Xiage, that Abaria is going to have a little bit easier of a time in this lane, because obviously as soon as he gets that Death Lotus on, he is going to put out so much damage, and Xiage has to quickly lay down a stun. But if he uses it aggressively like that, that's quite a cooldown now that Abaria could look to pressure out in lane.
So Idiom moves into that middle lane. Is tagged up by a ward, places down his own ward as well. Now fighting back in the vision game. And sits around the dragon, literally just standing still. Figuring out what his next play is, and literally just walking around in circles here. We'll be seeing the enemy jungler of Gilius. He heads into the pit, flag and drags over, and he is out of there. So Gilius making sure that he can't feel too comfortable in the river.
Don't want to get anybody comfortable in this game, if I'm being honest. If you're comfortable in a game where you're one game either from round 2 or away from being out of the LCS expansion tournament, you are some kind of crazy, because I don't think it's possible with this amount of pressure to actually feel too much comfort, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, that is for certain. Bottom lane still trading off. Take a look at these junglers. Again, meet each other in the jungle. Gilius just saying he is top dog for now as he looks for this gank onto the mid lane.
Third time?
Yep. Yep. And we'll be walking back into his jungle. Never quite finding the right gank that he wants, but props to Xiage. He's always one step ahead of Gilius.
Yeah, that's a little bit of a problem if your name is Gilius, though, is you need to get into the lane, really, and start having some kind of effect here, as we are in a pause ever so slightly here. Hopefully won't be for too long.
Yeah.
But our teams hopefully can let us know what is going on.
Yeah, I mean, like, they've had enough time of waiting already, so hopefully we don't have too much of a wait as we head into this one. But so far we have had not too much information headed our way. So just hoping that it's not something that's going to be long term and we won't have another wait.
Yeah, indeed. Looks like we have a little bit of lag out on the side of Cyborg Factory. So you're stuck with us for another couple of minutes. Hopefully it won't be that long.
What it does give us is time to take stock of the game so far. So 3 kills have gone down, 10 minutes in. It's been a little bit more quiet than at least the first game, and we're already getting back into this one. So there is a 1,000 gold advantage going over to the team of Meloncats. So yes, they are in advantage, but it is not all said and done. There is plenty of room to come back into this one from Cyborg Factory.
There is indeed, and now that Cyborg Factory are back and hopefully not lagging, they are only about 900 gold behind. So a good gank workout here from Idiom could be the turning point in this game. And you can see he did, I believe, cross a ward getting into the bush.
In the top lane, Equalizer comes out. Maybe not the best placed Equalizer, but nevertheless, it allows Gilius to get in the range and pick up the kill. And he was 5 steps ahead of him, but that ward, still, while it revealed him, he didn't decide to back off. Yeah,
we didn't quite catch that on the stream, unfortunately, but that kill in the top lane possibly could spell a little action around the dragon, perhaps, or even in mid lane, because here comes Idiom looking for a gank of his own. But look how far back the barrier is. Not really anything on in that middle lane.
Not at all just yet. Has decided to opt towards the Sorcerer's Boot as his first item. Then actually see Mundo basically straight by him the Spirit Visit. So he was sitting on a lot of gold while he got ganked there. One of the reasons why he was maybe a little bit more squishy.
Fourth time.
Will it be this one? We'll be throwing out the Void Spikes, and this time he will force a flash from Xiage. So this time it actually did result in something.
Yeah, that time Gilius made it work, but here we go.
Diode maybe caught out here, doesn't get tagged by the Howling Gale. Means there is not a lot of follow-up from the Cyborg Factory. And he will take this opportunity to regroup, head back, ward around the area, because it is 12 minutes into the game. And that means Dragon is on the cards for these two teams.
It really does. 3 kills to 1, though, and Katarina, with a kill already, has the Sorcerer's Boots. Down in this bottom lane, however,
That was a whirling death coming through. Didn't manage to tag him on the return. The Crikey will be getting away with his life. Still had flash and still had his lifelines had he needed to use them. So he wasn't in all that much danger.
But Katarina, if there's one place she is immensely effective in, it is these early game dragon fights. When nobody has a lot of resistances, everybody is fairly squishy, and one Death Lotus really can do massive amounts of damage, and currently set on 2,000 gold, instantly buys a needlessly large rod. That should be enough to have a chunk through anybody that stands next to it.
You know who else is good in early game team fights, specifically in enclosed areas? I'll give you 3 guesses. He's a Yordle and he's sat in top lane. And the person playing him is Eclipse.
Is it Teemo?
No, it is not. It's actually Rumble. Okay, enough,
sorry.
Heading into this one.
Got it. This game. Okay, we're focused now. Zane is focusing in on the bottom lane, but that's a little bit too much movement speed to catch on. However, look at the positioning, the warding as well around the dragon area. Meloncats have a decent amount of vision of the entrances, and then you look over on the side of Cyborg Factory, only real bot lane wards, but it's middle lane that there is a teleport.
Which is then cancelled.
Yeah.
But they will be landing the Scat of the Week. That's a pretty significant cooldown not to have in the near future, specifically as Dragon is a thing. It says, okay, you don't have teleport, so I guess we'll just start it.
Yeah, and this is going to be a Dragon pretty comfortably going over to Meloncats. Jarvan is so far away right now that there is no chance of any kind of contest, so Meloncats will extend their lead here.
So that one misread of the situation by Mundo results in a lot of gold down the drain. Gilius comes in for the 5th time. Or is result in anything else? He has
flash
the
this
flash.
time.
Doesn't have that one to get him away from the situation. The barrier looking for that ultimate. Will be using the Death Lotus. Gets the 1-for-1 as the Ignite finishes him off. So both, I was going to say junglers fall, but it is Gilius the jungler and the mid lane from Shiaz. So gets that assist in and a fairly even trade overall.
But a barrier is now 2-0 in this game, and if there's one champion you do not want to start picking up kills, it is the Katarina, and barrier is looking very scary here.
He is. Tosses out the bouncing blades. Thinks about going in. Isn't that ballsy at this stage in the game. 15 minutes in, buffs have started to spawn, and Meloncats make a very aggressive play into the jungle just to put down these wards, get that information, and that will be quickly countered by Idiom, but this is foreshadowing for a potential steal. This is a roam coming into the bottom lane. Taki will be interrupting the Death Lotus with his own ultimate of Monsoon. Flashes away, burns those big cooldowns. So that was a successful roam coming out from Meloncats.
It was, but I think Abaria was looking for kills there, and they do, however, get the turret from that. Here comes the teleport.
Coming out from Rumbles, Eclipse heads in from around the side, goes head-to-head with an angry Syndra. Tosses out his electric harpoons, tags him with that one. He is currently overheated, so even if he wanted to cast a couple of abilities, he couldn't. He was during that time silenced, so they go into the jungle, they take away the red buff, and they make a clean escape.
Eclipse, though, maybe not that comfortable on his teleport timings. I'm not exactly sure what that teleport was aiming for. It wasn't like they were about to fight. So an interesting teleport out of Eclipse. Remember, he is, of course, the coach for Meloncats. Masters rank player. Does normally play support, though. So it's expected that there would be situations,
problems, right?
Yeah, where he may not quite be used to exactly the nuances.
Yeah, I mean, like, Eclipse on this champion, specifically top lane, is a difficult thing to master, but now Sejuan has come in from the top lane. Good equalizer this time around. They will have to walk through that one if they want this kill. Flashes over the ultimate that was used there by Jarvan. Cataclysm will almost be saving it, but despite that, Mundo was able to run him down. Finish him off with a quick couple hits of his cleaver. Now a barrier moving on to Taki. Gilius comes in from the side, and this is a pretty dead Janna. Gets the reset now, moves on to Shields. Uses Death Lotus, will be popping that flash again. And it seems like every time Syndra has flash, he has to instantly use it.
Yeah, but that's another assist picked up for a barrier, and that's another pause. So we are hopefully not going to have too much of a wait again. It is a slight ping issue on one of our players. So Cyborg Factory, they are behind. Taki actually has left the game, so hopefully he won't be out for too long. Just should be a quick reconnect, but every time they get an assist in these fights on Katarina, every time they get a kill, That just makes it a bigger mountain to climb for Cyborg Factory because Meloncats are going to be in a very dominant position heading into the mid game. And Katarina is going to be able to really start chunking down everybody except Mundo very quickly.
I mean, that Katarina is getting very scary. Has the needlessly large rod 2, 0, and 1. You look down the item list from both of these teams, and again, Meloncats are ahead. Maybe not as much as the first game, because first game, 5,000 gold advantage at 15 minutes is a far cry from, well, still 4,000 gold at the 17-minute mark, but not in the same dire straits they were at this stage before.
Yeah, it's not quite looking so bad, but it is certainly an uphill battle. And let's take another look at Zaclipse on Rumble in this top lane. So that equalizer was actually pretty good. I mean, it made sure that there was no quick kill and quick escape. He also managed to use the Cataclysm to his own defense somewhat by kind of positioning around with the flash to make sure that Jarvan couldn't follow up, but did end up falling. Took a lot more damage, though, than they would have liked to when they were chasing down that Rumble.
Yeah, so as we get into these team fights, it just needs one good equalizer, and that sets up the perfect team fight. It's a very difficult thing to do alongside with getting those teleport timings down, but once you find the knack to it, and once you get into those team fights and can repeatedly do that, then you can have a pretty good setup to your games. And we're harping on a lot about the top lane and talking a lot about Eclipse. But right now, top lane is kind of where it's at. Yeah,
exactly. That pretty much we've already talked about time and time again is all what 4.19 is about. 80 carries, your choices are pretty much just Corki and Lucian with a little bit of Graves mixed in there from time to time. So it's really the big difference is up in that top lane. So we have seen a number of different top laners here this weekend. A lot more Aurelia and Maokai than I was expecting. I was hoping we might see some of those Lissandra and Victor picks, but they haven't found their way through.
Yeah, I mean, you've mentioned this before, Stress, but you know, those Victors and Lissandra is pretty good against the melee picks, like the picks that we've been seeing a lot of. So, yeah, I mean, maybe we'll see one of these players do that. Of course, that is kind of like you master the champions in the meta, then you look at Victor and Lissandra. So maybe these guys are just feeling more comfortable with what they're used to.
Maybe next week.
Maybe next week.
Because we're going to have a lot of awesome games next week. I mean, we've already talked about how Millennium H2K are going to be there next week. You know, a couple of other teams are going to be joining them. We probably don't want to, you know, say all of the results just in case you missed any of the games, because that wouldn't be good. You wouldn't want anybody to tell you the results of games you haven't seen yet. So let's focus back again on this game. Meloncats versus Cyborg Factory, which, you know, both teams, I think just from namesake, people won't really have seen much before, but Meloncats, formerly Demon Logs, were top. I want to say they finished something like second or third on the ladder. I think it was third, actually.
Yeah, if memory serves right, it was third because from the opposing team, Cyborg Factory on the EUNE server finished fourth.
Yeah, that would make sense then if that indeed is true. So they are a very strong team, but we already have seen that being strong on a ranked ladder doesn't exactly make you the strongest of teams here in the competitive scene. And we are still waiting for an update here from the teams, as nothing really has come through. I'm going to double check, see whether our admins have anything for us. But nothing yet. Nothing yet. So we know player has restarted the load and has reconnected to the game, but he's just left the game again.
Left the game. All right. So we could be here for a little bit longer than we were maybe originally expecting. But look at this game, currently 3 to 5 kills and 4,000 gold advantage. We've mentioned all this time and time again. 2 tower advantage here and item advantage, yes, but this game is absolutely to play for. This is not said and done as we head into pretty much the roaming phase. Like, we're 17 minutes in, but this is quickly getting out of the laning phase.
It really is, and that is a big warning sign here for Cyborg Factory. Meloncats have a great team composition for these fights. They've got 2 reset champions in Kha'Zix and Katarina who are going to look to pick off that first person in the fight and then just clean everything up at the tail end of the fight. And it's going to be made even easier by Eclipse's Rumble, because Rumble's equalizer, if landed in the right position, is going to drop the enemies so very quickly. And then you haven't even taken into account the Lucian, who is a very, very strong AD carry in the team fights.
You have to feel like as soon as they get rolling, as soon as they get one kill, then the whole domino line will just fall over, and you have the resets coming in from the Kha'Zix, the Katarina, and they will just run them down. So you look at Cyborg Factory, and what do they have to do in these team fights? They have this Draven. This is the unconventional pick of the game, you know, even more so than the Katarina coming out here. And so far, it's 1-0. It has done okay. Picked up the Infinity Edge as his first item. But is it going to make the impact that it needs to go up against this Katarina and this Kha'Zix and the rest of the lineup from Meloncats?
And that's the question, really, is Draven far enough ahead for himself? Because Draven does fall off. If you do not continue to get kills and cash in those adoration stacks, you don't scale as well as most other AD carries in the game. He has himself an Infinity Edge already, which compared to Lucian is about on par, but Lucian is slightly ahead here. Well, I say slightly, 153 CS to 129. That's a fair difference already when you take into account both of them have kills, and that translates into an Avarice Blade's worth of difference, which isn't the biggest difference right now, but of course that Avarice Blade is going to stack up gold more and more, whereas Draven needs to cash in his passive.
Yeah, he has to kill people to make the gold income go his way, whereas, you know, of course, Avarice Blade just kill minions, which is a lot easier than guaranteeing, you know, champion kills. So now heading down on this pause timer, these teams are still sitting here, and there's been a lot of waiting for both of these teams, Stress. So, like, heading into a high-pressure game like this, high-stakes game, where one loss here from Cyborg Factory could spell the end of their chances in the EU LCS expansion tournament, and then having to sit through this as well, nerves have got to be getting to them.
Yeah, nerves really do have to be getting to them, and we are deep into the day here. This is getting later and later, but the restart has gone through. Is this going to be enough here? Are they just checking ping, or are we actually into game? I believe we may, in fact, be into game.
So, fingers crossed. Let's see if this one comes through. So, both mid laners did go back to base, simultaneously picked up a Deathfire Grass coming in for Shiaj, and the Death Cap coming out from Katarina.
Yes, indeed, but I mean, this point in the game, let's take stock a little bit. This is game number 2 of a best of 3 here between Cyborg Factory and Meloncats. This is for the LCS expansion tournament. Only round 1 though, so it's not like this game does hinge directly on going into LCS, but if you're out, it may as well be the same thing.
Absolutely. Now, trying to clear up this vision game here. Definitely in favor of Cyborg Factory, and that's the first time I've said this in the series, but look at the vision control looking for from Cyborg Factory here. Like, it's so much more than Meloncats, all in their jungle, one aggressive ward, mostly around the river, and these are somewhat defensive wards for how the game's going. I mean, they are behind, so that I guess that is the right play, but they're not trying to regain any ground. Shiaj in the bottom lane has caught out Diode, and with that newly purchased Deathfire Grass will be bursting down the support.
Yeah, and that's an easy kill worked for Cyborg Factory here. They're going to pressure the bottom lane turret as well. Could get critical damage down onto it. The question is, how can Meloncats actually react here? A third of the turret health remains, but the time perhaps could be right for Cyborg Factory down in this bottom lane.
They are going to continue to push here in the jungle. Gilius takes this opportunity to start trying to regain control over the opposing buffs here. He's managed to take away that red buff before with that well-timed invade. Now looking to exacerbate that control and head into this blue buff and take this one away as well. Top laner of Mundo plus Idiom and Shiaj heading in, trying to contest this. This is a 3 versus 3. If it comes down to it in a team fight, in a pinch, who's going to come away with this one? And Syndra says, well, this one's mine. We'll be heading away with the force of will, taking away this blue buff.
Yeah, that was an easy decision there on who's going to get away with that one. Because only one champion can manually pick that up and drag it wherever they want.
So Syndra gets away with this. It's a little interesting that Meloncats actually decided to contest this with that in mind, but either way, they are in position now to deal some damage to the top turret, indeed turn that one to rubble, and carry on pushing this lane a little bit. So making some positional plays, but nothing too explosive just yet.
Nothing too much yet, but they have now got all 3 of the outer towers, which puts Meloncats in a great position because it's going to force Cyborg Factory out of their safe line. I think is the right way of putting it. Now they have to come towards objectives like Dragon, which is about to spawn. And that is a dangerous proposition. This back timing actually out of Draven is really not well timed. I mean, Dragon just spawned. Surely they know it's up.
Oh, if he recalls here, it's probably going to be the second Dragon of the game going to Meloncats, uncontested and literally for free. Idiom now heads over to the area. Maybe they were just a couple 2 seconds late to the punch. Indeed they are. Here comes the teleport now from the top lane of Mundo. This is the second one coming in from the top lane. That's just going to go ahead and be cancelled.
That was a really late teleport. I mean, they had to be aware of the situation there. There was no way that that Dragon hadn't already been taken. So Cyborg Factory using a couple of cooldowns there. They perhaps didn't need to.
Maybe. And maybe we are going to see a good teleport come in from Mundo. But we haven't seen one yet. It will allow him to carry on pushing the top lane. But Eclipse is well on his way into the top lane to clear this one out. So far, again, let's take stock of the game. 5,000 gold advantage to Meloncats. This has definitely been stabilized a little bit by Cyborg Factory. The gold advantage has definitely not ramped up in the last couple of minutes. And while it is Meloncats clearly in the driver's seat, it is not all the way to the finish line at this stage in the game.
Indeed. Abaria is just going to, however, try and secure a bit more vision, but does have to be careful. Shiage is here, and the junglers are going to convene here too. The vision war gets won by Meloncats. But is there a sweeper available? That is the question.
There is by Mundo, but he's nowhere near. Now it comes up. Here we go. Was able to clear that one away. Quickly used by the mid laner, and they catch out Gilly as he will be using his ultimate, but the slam dunk comes out from Idiom, making sure he's not going anywhere.
That's going to put a halt on any of the aggression that Meloncats were looking for here, as Katarina doesn't really have enough upfront damage to take a fight like this without somebody like a Kha'Zix dealing damage at the same time as well. So Meloncats have to look for another option here, but they are pushing heavily up in that top lane. And Mundo with that Spirit Visage is pretty tanky, and I don't think Eclipse is actually going to be able to force him out of lane here.
Not by himself, but the barrier was thinking about heading into the top lane. Decides he's going to head into the mid lane this time. Try and get some siege down. But Janna, the queen of keeping your turrets alive, shield comes out. And we'll be keeping it alive for now. And that will result in Meloncats backing off again a little bit. So this game has absolutely slowed down to a snail's pace. But it is getting to the point where it is going to break into a tension point.
That is, however, a good sign if you're a Cyborg Factory fan, as, you know, a slower pace may very well favor them. Meloncats picked up a lot of momentum very quickly in the first game of this series, so slowing them down is a great tactic here for Cyborg Factory, and this is a far lower kill game than the previous affair.
So now scanning down the items again. Mundo, of course, going down that route you would expect from a Mundo, which is pick up health and then pick up some more health. In the bottom lane, Static Shift now picked up by Draven will be his next item choice here. So again, not too much out of the ordinary when you look down the board.
Nothing out of the ordinary as such, but I want to pick up on the Aegis of the Legion quickly picked up by Nami. And Nami actually has had a fair amount of gold this game. Ooh, that was a odd pathing coming out of Gilius. But Cyborg Factory maybe are finding a little bit of aggression here, but they did spot Rumble coming in from the side. That could have been a very nasty equalizer had it landed.
Gillis has not had the same impact on this game as he did in the last game, Stress. Hasn't had the same control of the jungle. Yes, he has taken away a couple of buffs, but often paid his own life for them. And while they are very comfortable in the Cyborg Factory jungle, they haven't taken too much away. They are very good at juggling their lanes.
We talked in the first game about how Gilius is predominantly a Jarvan main. That isn't his only champion, but now that it was picked away, we're seeing him on a slightly different champion here with Kha'Zix, who does see a lot of play. He just doesn't feel as comfortable, and you're right, he's 2-3-2. It's not the same stat line we had on Jarvan, but ooh, looked like they were gearing up for an engage there. Idiom wants to chase this down. He may get caught out if he's not careful.
Well, you know who has been caught out is going to be Gilius in the jungle. Here comes Equalizer for the disengage. Will they turn the fight around and try and go for this one? Looks like the answer is no, but Idiom comes in for the flag and drag. Doesn't quite tag die out, and he may be caught out himself. Jarvan taking a lot of hits. Will have to flash away. Lands the second Electro Harpoon from Rumble, and he is still slow. That's the first kill for a barrier. Gets the reset. There's the Monsoons. It instantly interrupted, though. So a 1-for-0 into this fight, and that seems that's all that Meloncats are going to get away with, plus this blue buff.
They are, but look at this positioning. This is very aggressive here onto this Baron. There's no smite available currently for Cyborg Factory, and is there any vision either? No. Cyborg Factory can only guess that this, in fact, is the play that Meloncats are making, and with Dude running blocking duty here, it looks like they figured it out.
He's quite happy to be the sacrificial Nami, but he doesn't even need to be, as they do secure the Baron. CR takes so much damage from Crikey. He will be dropping down a 1-for-0 plus the Baron, and Meloncats get away with it.
Meloncats suddenly pick up the pace here, and a barrier is actually maybe looking to pick up a couple of scraps here at the tail end of this fight. Does he actually have enough damage to do anything? Doesn't look like he wants to opt for it, but good decision-making out of Meloncats. They knew they could rush Baron fairly early on into this game with the smite unavailable, and that means Cyborg Factory are again on the back foot.
That results in a whole influx of items with all that gold that they just managed to accrue. Zhonya's Hourglass Locket of the Iron Solari plus the Void Staff. So many big items, but Cyborg Factory tried to make a timing push onto the middle tower to no real avail. They took it low, but low doesn't mean a dead turret.
No, it doesn't. It stays alive on a little bit of health here, and Cyborg Factory have been deterred. The rest of the team are coming.
Oh, that is a good equalizer. Slams down onto Sane, and he's still ticking down. Won't have to use the heal. Also gets tagged by the Void Spikes by Gilius. He won't be falling over, but Meloncats do utilize this to push themselves and force their way into the middle lane.
Oh, Idiom was recalling on a ward, but Meloncats have the health. They have the regeneration here from the Baron buff as well. And as this wave pushes in, you have to feel like Meloncats are going to look to pressure this tower out, maybe even look for an inhibitor turret, but that's a massive stun.
They will take this middle turret, and where are they going to draw the line? Cyborg Factory will be able to hold off the assault for now, but Meloncats just destroy their way through the jungle. Takes away this red buff as well. What is their next plan as the Whirling Death comes through? Shot in the dark to try and secure his red buff. Will be working out, but this is yet another dragon going to Meloncats. Every major objective has gone their way in this game, and that is reflected in the gold totals. 10,000 gold advantage now here. And in the middle lane, Cyborg Factory have to be careful.
Teleport is available for Rumble here, so he doesn't have to cross the river by foot, but Cyborg Factory do back away. They got themselves a turret from that little play, and that holds the gold around 10,000 as a difference, but that is a big difference right now. And Meloncats are in a great position here if they wanted to look to take game 2 in the next couple of minutes.
So, minion thrown over the wall, using that minion as a projectile. New form of warfare from Cyborg Factory, and now Meloncats just take the safe option, take the middle turret, move into the top turret, and try and repeat their push in a new lane. We'll be using the culling to poke away at Sejun, but he will just shrug that off. Isn't it too difficult in this situation to just continue to regenerate that health?
Meloncats have found themselves a spot in front of this upper inner tower, and that is a good position for them right now. Equalizer available once again, so this next fight could very well be the first inhibitor of the game going down if Meloncats can land all of their abilities right on top of each other. Here they go.
Here comes the equalizer, perfectly placed. Everyone is melting from Cyborg Factory. But this is Katarina time. Picks up one, and the rest of the team will follow with even more kills. A barrier can't make his way into the base, but a quick 3-for-0 means that the top inner turret will be falling, and they may be able to pick up a little bit more.
In the blink of an eye, the equalizer comes crashing down on multiple members. And that's Katarina's playground right there. As soon as you're low health, she will pick up the resets and get as many kills as possible. And that is, in fact, the first inhibitor. Gilius, however...
Oh, that is a big crit coming out from Draven. Won't result in the kill. And that will at least force them back. Again, the Whirling Death doesn't quite hit its mark.
The angle.
Will interrupt the recall from a barrier, though. So that's a win in my book. He will look to back off here. Gilius choosing a new spot to recall. I don't think Sejun will find him this time around. So everyone heads back to base with a lot of gold to spend. 3,000 gold for the AD carry of Crikey. 2,400 in the top lane. And that will turn into a Void Staff for Rumble.
And that is, yeah, there you go. Void Staff picked up for Rumble indeed. And this mid lane tower still hasn't gone down. Surely they can get it now. There we go.
Got it.
It was an easy pickup there for Cyborg Factory. But no dragon on the map, no other easy objectives for Cyborg Factory to take from the tail end of that fight. So they are forced onto a defensive stance again against this very heavy engaged composition.
You know, but Cyborg Factory are not getting demoralized. They're not just sitting in their base and waiting for the storm to come to them. They're pushing out of their base, making sure that they maintain that vision control. Most of it is sitting in the middle lane at the moment, but they probably will put some in their own jungle as they cycle back to their base.
Ooh, Gilius is taking a lot of damage from Sane. They have to be careful with that because Sane is only 1-0, but he has a fair amount of damage. He's going to try and trade.
Oh, but Gilius is going face first into a jar with a Flag and Dragon. Sane will be dropping him, but now the rest of the team is converging on their location.
Low health.
Mundo comes in for the conference call, but just finds himself in the middle of the rest of the enemy team. They won't be able to pin him down, but a barrier will put out a little bit of poke on the way out.
However, look over in the top lane. The inhibitor is already fallen from the last engage, and with super minions pushing in, this is Meloncats' opportunity to look to take even more turrets here. Somebody has to go and deal with those super minions that are pushing into the base because they're already onto the Nexus towers. And from there, Meloncats can sit in front of this bottom lane tower all day long.
So another inner turret fall. The inner turret ring has now gone down. That inhibitor is still down as well, meaning the flood of minions heading into that base. Shiaj is the one to clear this one away. And they are gradually getting inch by inch. Meloncats are slowly and methodically cleaning up this game.
They are indeed. Uh-oh, they look like they could be caught out in the bottom lane. Sane is in an awkward position, and here comes a barrier from the side.
This is not looking good. A barrier looking for this low health target, but Mundo will be falling first. Crikey, look at the damage he is throwing out with the culling, and Giaz jumps over the wall with his flash. Here comes a great equalizer. Shut down for Draven, though. Can Sane go huge? Whoa, over the wall as well. Monsoon keeps him alive, picks it one, but here comes Katarina. Double kill, 4 kills in quick succession, a 4-for-1. And how much can Meloncats take off this?
Super minions already on the Nexus towers. That is one going down, and Meloncats look like they might want to close this game out. 20 plus seconds on the lowest cooldown on the death timers. That is going to be the Nexus falling.
And unless Idiom can pull some sort of hero defense, this is the game going 2-0 to Meloncats in the very decisive series. Hard fought, but we are here stressed, and they will secure their spot in the next week of the EU LCS expansion tournament.
Advancing to round 2, and you know, you have to think that earlier this week when they had to change up their roster a little bit, Meloncats had to be a little bit worried. That is a big sigh of relief now.
Yeah, a massive sigh of relief going through that series, which was a little bit stop and start for a while, but they did manage to secure that win over the enemy team of Cyborg Factory. But what a showing for Cyborg Factory. First game didn't go well, but second game was fought tooth and nail.
Yeah, they fought a lot harder, but a composition with Katarina and Kha'Zix is going to snowball so heavily. The Draven pick, actually, I would say, ended up working out.
Yeah.
Ended 3-1. Obviously wasn't enough to win the game, but I think certainly on a solo player perspective that, you know, Draven wasn't too bad a pick in the end. Just wasn't exactly what the team needed.
So, we've harped on about it, but Meloncats will be going into next week. But make sure to join us next week as well, as we will have some familiar faces in the form of H2K, Millennium to name a couple, and the rest of the teams you've seen over this weekend going into the next week to decide who will be getting into the offline rounds. But once again, I was Pulse alongside Move Stress, and earlier today, of course, Christopher Panky Pankhurst was on the caster desk. But thank you for joining us, and we will see you next week.